Common names of organic compounds, learning the use of secondary, primary, tertiary, quaternary, iso and neo. At the end of this lecture, I will teach you my personal trick of naming exam questions. Firstly, let me teach you some basic concepts. I write primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary. Then I write 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon. Now consider 4 carbons. This carbon has formed one bond. I write H3. These 2 carbons have formed 2 bonds each. I write H2, H2. And this carbon has also formed one bond. I write H3. Now listen carefully. This carbon is bonded to one carbon, so it is a primary carbon. Also, this carbon is bonded to one carbon, so it is a primary carbon. Secondly, this carbon is bonded to 2 other carbons, so it is a secondary carbon. Also, this carbon is bonded to 2 other carbons, so it is a secondary carbon. Similarly, consider this organic compound. I do not fill the hydrogen valency of each carbon so that you could understand it easily. Now this carbon, and this carbon are bonded to one carbon each. So this is a primary carbon, this is a primary carbon, and this is a primary carbon. Secondly, this carbon is bonded to 2 other carbons, so it is a secondary carbon. Thirdly, this carbon is bonded to 3 other carbons, so it is a tertiary carbon. Therefore, note it down that if carbon is bonded to one carbon, it is a primary carbon. If carbon is bonded to 2 other carbons, it is a secondary carbon. If carbon is bonded to 3 other carbons, it is a tertiary carbon. And if carbon is bonded to 4 other carbons, it is a quaternary carbon. For example, consider this organic compound. Pause the video and give name to each carbon in this organic compound. Well, this is a primary carbon, 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 and this is a primary carbon. Secondly, this is a secondary carbon. Thirdly, this is a tertiary carbon. Fourthly, this is a quaternary carbon. Thus remember all these examples. Now let me take you to the next level. I write primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary. I write 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, for primary, I write N. For secondary, I write iso. And for quaternary, I write neo. Here, consider ethane, CH3, single bond CH3. If I remove one hydrogen from it, this becomes ethyl. Remember that we represent alkyl group by dash R. Thus, whenever I use dash R in this lecture, it means alkyl like methyl, ethyl, propyl, etc. Therefore, note it down. Now consider this organic compound. There are 3 carbons present in it. I write prop. All the bonds are single. I write N. So this is propane. This is a straight chain of carbon. I write N. Remember that N means normal. So this organic compound is N-propane, or normal straight propane. Secondly, if this N-propane loses one hydrogen, it becomes N-propyl. Now listen carefully, because this part is the climax of this lecture. Consider N-propyl. If I attach alkyl group R or methyl to this propyl, what would be its name? Well, we look at the position of alkyl R to name this compound. Let me repeat it. We look at the position of alkyl R to name this compound. For example, this is a primary carbon, this is a secondary carbon, and this is also a primary carbon. Here, the alkyl is attached to the primary carbon. If alkyl is present at primary carbon, we use N for it. So I name it N-propyl. For R, I write alkyl. Remember that I do not name it primary propyl. That's why I have written N below primary. So this is N-propyl alkyl. Now consider this organic compound and this organic compound. In this organic compound, this is primary carbon, this is also primary carbon, and this is secondary carbon. Here, the alkyl group is bonded to secondary carbon, so how can we name it? Well, the rule is, when there is alkyl group or methyl present at second carbon or secondary carbon, always name it iso. Hence, this alkyl group R is present at second carbon or secondary carbon, so these three carbons are isopropyl. Remember that I only named these three carbons, not this alkyl group R. So this is isopropyl. On the other hand, in this organic compound, this is a primary carbon, this is also a primary carbon, and this is a secondary carbon. Here, the functional group OH is bonded to secondary carbon. So how can we name it? Well, the rule is, when there is functional group bonded to second or secondary carbon, always name it secondary. Hence, there are three carbons, I write propyl. The functional group OH is attached to secondary carbon, I write secondary. For this OH, I write alcohol. So I get secondary propyl alcohol. That's why I have written secondary below iso. Therefore, remember that if alkyl group like methyl is bonded to second carbon or secondary carbon, we use iso. Secondly, a functional group like OH is bonded to second carbon or secondary carbon, we use secondary. Now consider this organic compound. There are 4 carbons present in this organic compound having single bonds. I write butane. It is a straight chain. I write N. So it is N-butane. Here, if we remove one hydrogen from it, this becomes N-butyl. Now consider this organic compound and this organic compound. Here, the alkyl group is bonded to second carbon, so I write isobutyl. While here, the functional group is also bonded to second carbon, so I write secondary butyl. For this OH, I write alcohol. Hence, I get secondary butyl alcohol. Now consider this organic compound and this organic compound. Here, this carbon is bonded to 3 other carbons, so it is a tertiary carbon. We can see that this alkyl is bonded to tertiary carbon. In such cases, I write tertiary. There are 4 carbons, I write butyl. So I get tertiary butyl. While here, the functional group is bonded to tertiary carbon, I write tertiary. There are 4 carbons, I write butyl. For OH, I write alcohol. So I get tertiary butyl alcohol. Thus remember that if alkyl group or functional group is bonded to tertiary carbon, we name it tertiary, like tertiary butyl or tertiary butyl alcohol. Finally, consider this organic compound. There are 5 carbons present in it having single bonds. I write pentane. It is a straight chain. I write N. So it is N-pentane. Here, if we remove one hydrogen from it, this becomes N-pentyl. Now consider this organic compound and this organic compound. Here, the alkyl group R is bonded to second carbon, so it is isopentyl. Here, the functional group OH is bonded to second carbon, so I write secondary pentyl alcohol. Now let me take you to the medium level. Consider this organic compound and this organic compound. In this case, the alkyl group is bonded to tertiary carbon. I write tertiary. There are 5 carbons. I write pentyl. So this is tertiary pentyl. Similarly, in this case, the functional group OH is bonded to tertiary carbon. I write tertiary. There are 5 carbons. I write pentyl. For this OH, I write alcohol. So I get tertiary pentyl alcohol. Remember that if alkyl group or functional group is bonded to tertiary carbon, we use tertiary for both of them. Thus note down all these examples. Now let me take you to the harder level. Consider this organic compound and this organic compound. In this case, this carbon is bonded to 4 other carbons, so it is quaternary carbon. In case of quaternary carbon, I encircle this whole thing. This alkyl group is bonded to this whole thing. I mean, this alkyl group is bonded to quaternary carbon. Remember that for quaternary carbon, we use the word neo. Let me repeat it. For quaternary carbon, we use the word neo. Hence, I write neo. There are 5 carbons. I write pentyl. So this is neopentyl. Similarly, in this case, this carbon is bonded to 4 other carbons. Hence, it is a quaternary carbon. I encircle all this thing. Now, this OH is bonded to quaternary carbon. We know that for quaternary carbon, we use the word neo. There are 5 carbons. I write pentyl. For this OH, I write alcohol. So this is neopentyl alcohol. Thus remember that if alkyl group or functional group is bonded to quaternary carbon, we use the word neo for it. Lastly, let me teach you my personal trick of common naming 3 types of organic compounds. For example, consider this organic compound. As we learned in the previous lectures about locating father chain and the son. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 carbons present in this chain. It is a father chain and this is his son. I number the father chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 carbons present in the father chain. I write hept. All the carbons have single bonds. I write an. What about the son's part? Well, to name it, I use my personal trick. I write the son's part here. Instead of the father chain, I write only R. We can see that R is bonded to secondary carbon, so it is iso. There are 3 carbons. I write propyl. The son is located at the 4th position. I write 4. So I get 4-isopentyl heptane. Thus noted down this example. Now let me teach you the second type. Consider this organic compound. This is the father chain and this is his son. I number the father chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 carbons present in the father chain. I write hept. Also, there is 1 double bond. I write ene. So the father chain is heptene. What about the son's part? Well, I write the son's part here. Instead of father, I write the alkyl group R. This carbon is bonded to 3 other carbons. I write tertiary. There are 4 carbons present in it. I write butyl. The son is located at the 4th position. I write 4. So I get 4 tertiary butyl heptane. Thus noted down this example. Lastly, let me teach you the third type. Consider this organic compound. This is the father chain and this is the son. I number the father chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 carbons present in the father chain. I write non. Also, there is 1 triple bond. I write ine. What about the son's part? Well, I write it separately and instead of father chain, I write alkyl group R. Now this carbon is bonded to 4 other carbons, so it is a quaternary carbon. I encircle all this thing. We can see that father chain or alkyl is bonded to quaternary carbon. We have already learned that for quaternary carbon, we use the word neo. There are 5 carbons. I write pentyl. The sun is located position. I write 5. So I get 5 neopentyl nonine. I hope that you have learned all about the common names of organic compounds.